Beryl is on approach to the Texas shoreline, expected to make landfall within the next 24 hours as a hurricane, as it is now re-strengthening towards that criteria. It could be very close to Houston with some of those heaviest rain and wind impacts, plus we'll see effects go inland from there. I've got the details in this video. Let's get right into today's weather headlines.
One Nation Weather.
It's an unusual upload time for me in the middle of an afternoon, but here we are taking a look at Beryl as it is re-strengthening, possibly set to overachieve. As these headlines indicate, the worst impacts will probably be with the surge and the gusty winds and some heavy rain for southeast Texas, but we'll certainly be looking at some inland effects from tornado risks, flooding, and more. That's what I'm breaking down right here, all of that in this video. By the way, speaking of inland effects, no matter where you're watching from, whether it's on the Texas coast or inland, please let me know where you're watching from down there in that comment section below the video, before or after you watch right now. It doesn't matter to me. Also consider subscribing if you are new to the channel. All right, let's get right into this. There are timestamps in the description and in a pinned comment below if you want to skip to a specific part of the video. I'm going to do an overview, then we'll talk about Texas, then we'll talk about inland effects. All of that is right here in this content, but you might not want to watch the whole thing, and that's why those are there. Anyway, we're looking at the Beryl here, still a tropical storm in the northwestern Gulf of Mexico as of the afternoon on our Sunday, July 7th. That's what that green tropical cyclone indication is right there at the bottom of the cone from the latest advisory from the Hurricane Center. It's very messy and disorganized, but it looks better than it did 24 hours ago, and that's why the Hurricane Center thinks that by the time we get here to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so 7 p.m. Central Time this evening, we will see this strengthen up to a 75 mile per hour low-end Category 1 hurricane with gusts up to around 90 miles per hour, nearing that Cat 2 strength. So we'll definitely see a strengthening storm. All the models indicate that we'll likely get this up to Cat 1 or maybe even Cat 2 strength. This could occur through some rapid intensification overnight tonight and into our Monday morning. The good news is that there won't be much Gulf left for this thing to work with. So as it makes its way towards Port Lavaca, Bay City, where that landfall is most likely there in Texas, and it's continued to shift a little bit towards the east there because it was Port Lavaca yesterday. Now it's closer to Bay City. We'll definitely see some 85 mile per hour sustained winds, 105 mile per hour gusts, more than likely, based on the Hurricane Center cone. It could be even a little stronger or weaker than that, but overall expect Cat 1 to Cat 2 impacts, especially from the gusts pushing on shore in a compact area there. Now, this whole area I circled that's east of the far right side of that cone, we will definitely see some impacts, even from the potential for some isolated tornadoes as the storm pushes inland. So definitely be, on alert even as we head inland from there. Notice that we're going to see this likely go down from that green tropical storm icon down to a depression. So from 40 mile per hour winds late Monday down to around 30 miles per hour, as you can see here, into early Tuesday coming out of Texas towards Arkansas. So the wind field will rapidly weaken just as quickly as it moved on up. By the time we go towards Tuesday, heading into Wednesday, out of northern Arkansas into Missouri as well as Illinois, this is where we'll see the center of low pressure. In fact, it'll continue northeastward towards the Great Lakes from there in the northeastern U.S. by the end of the week. A lot of the heaviest rain is going to be out ahead of that center, so as early as Tuesday into Wednesday and Thursday, a lot of areas east and northeast of that cone will begin to feel the impacts inland from mostly heavy rainfall. Hurricane warnings are in pink, tropical storm warnings are in yellow on your screen as we focus on the Texas threat coming into our landfall. Now, one thing I want to point out, this whole area I just circled in blue, down here from around Beeville to Corpus Christi to Kingsville, down to Port Isabel, if you're in any warning within that circle right there, things have trended down. The cone continues to shift east and away from you. So Corpus Christi, good news, while you're under that hurricane warning, more than likely it's a 99.9% chance at this point that you don't see hurricane conditions there. Things will really begin to go downhill, though, in terms of the weather if you go northeast of Corpus Christi, really into this area I have boxed in, where the Hurricane Center has actually increase some of the chances for the highest winds to be in this zone from Victoria to Port Lavaca over to the Bay City area. In fact, here's a description of that hurricane warning that we have for Bay City, Blessing, and Van Vleck there in Texas. This is where that landfall is likely going to be nearby. The peak wind forecast is for winds of 60 to 80 miles per hour with gusts to 100 miles per hour. These warnings tend to be even conservative, so be prepared that we could definitely see some gusts occasionally and briefly over 100 to 105 miles per hour in that area heading into our early Monday morning. The rest of these yellow zones, definitely watching for those tropical storm conditions, because on the east side of the storm, you can guarantee places like Houston, all the way as far inland as just south of Palestine there in Texas, we will see some of the very gusty tropical storm force winds. But they'll become more minimal the further north you go in those yellow zones, of course. While Corpus Christi won't necessarily see the highest winds, we could definitely still see some 2 to 4 foot storm surge entering the bay. That is water above normal levels here, saltwater at that, entering the coastline. I really think from Matagorda Bay, though, to Galveston Bay, that's where we're going to have the most surge. especially if you're there in the Bay City region. That's where we're going to have some of that heaviest surge pushing on in, some more of that saltwater inundation that could be as much as around 6 to maybe even 7 feet above normal levels there. Those blue spots on the periphery of these areas in southern Texas and southwest Louisiana need to prepare for at least some surge. Rip currents around the rest of the Gulf Coast. Now, just wanted to point out one last time here, going out of Sunday and into our early Monday, we will continue to watch in those dark green and light yellow zones that I have highlighted here in my ONW severe scale, the potential for isolated to even scattered, weak spin-up tornadoes. If you're in the Houston area of Texas, definitely prepare for that into the night tonight, because well before the storm even makes it on shore, some tornadic bands could be moving on through again through the rest of our Sunday, July 7th, even into Monday, July 8th. Let's talk about those impacts with future radar timing from one of our hurricane models. This one's been doing great for the last 10 days out of this storm. Notice we're going to see a lot of those heavy rain and gusty wind impacts still offshore around, say, 7 to 8 p.m. tonight. But we'll be watching, even though this model might not show it much, from Beaumont, Texas, curling all the way back down there towards Corpus Christi, some of those outer bands that propagate from the south, generally towards the north, will have the potential to produce tornadoes through the rest of our Sunday into the evening and even the nighttime here out ahead of this storm, because those bands are actually pushing against the surface winds that are coming from the north to the south into this storm. That creates some shear, and we could definitely see some brief spin-ups possible on the ground here in southern Texas, close to the shores, through the rest of especially the evening hours here, before I think we actually start to see some of the worst just hurricane conditions try to push on shore towards places like Port Lavaca, Bay City there in Texas overnight tonight. This is around 1 to 2 a.m. on our Monday morning. This model, a lot of other models indicating that a Cat 1 hurricane will probably be ongoing by this point. Notice that eye really starting to become more focused. There's a lot of those pinks around it indicating strong thunderstorms. This model thinks that this could try to get on up towards Cat 2, pushing towards Cat 3 with the gusts as it heads on shore here. That right front quadrant is going to be feisty on this eastern side of the eye. I really think is going to be where some of the worst impacts are. Notice Corpus Christi really just getting edged by this, whereas areas like El Campo, Bay City, Sugar Land, and Galveston there in Texas really feel the effects of very heavy rain, gusty wind. Again, the coastal surge will be a problem. Make sure you're always listening to those local officials for the most important information you can get regarding this storm in your very local location. But again, I can't stress this enough, Port Lavaca to Bay City, right between you guys. This is where this eye is probably to come on shore. You'll be in the eye wall for a few hours in these locations, maybe even have the eye briefly move right over you if it is a well-defined one. Hopefully it won't be, because that would mean a stronger storm. We're probably going to see this go back down to tropical storm as it approaches Houston, but strong winds upwards of 50 miles per hour, especially for those gusts, through a lot of this region around mid to late morning Monday. These whole eastern side bands are going to be those ones I'll continue to be monitoring for you. I think the Storm Prediction Center might even try to put up a level 3 to 5 enhanced risk on their severe weather scale heading into our Monday, because this could be pretty intense coming out of Texas and eventually heading towards western and southwestern Louisiana throughout the day. Things will improve by midday from Corpus Christi northward to Victoria, as this model indicates. And then from there, look at this, Dallas will see things relatively deteriorate. What I mean by relatively, we'll see some gusty winds, we'll see some heavy rain, but it's not going to be terrible in Dallas, nor is it in Texarkana yet anyway, by around 7 to 8 p.m. In between, though, from Waxahachie to Palestine to Tyler, even maybe towards Lufkin if the rain's still lingering around, definitely some heavy rain as you're just north of the center of the low pressure. Meanwhile, where I'm drawing these arrows, that's where we'll see these storms propagating from southwest to northeast, just like we would see with a normal low pressure system here now on land. Coming out of Texas into Louisiana, this is a real concern with the daytime heating that could occur out ahead of that late Monday. Be prepared for some spin-up tornadoes and gusty winds possible in this area, continuing even into the evening and nighttime hours from where I just showed, now over to here into our early Tuesday morning. And then from there, we see the impacts continue inland, and I'll talk more about those inland impacts right here in just a second. Before we talk inland impacts, just want to point out that you can get the free trial to maps just like these from WeatherBell right down there in the description. I also use Radar Omega maps in some of these videos, so let's get right back into this here. If you're in any of those deep red shades, going from really the Houston and Bay City area of Texas, from Galveston through Tyler, Palestine, up to Texarkana as well, these are the locations coming out of Texas and into Arkansas, and as well as in that southeastern sliver of Oklahoma, where we will see more than likely some widespread 4 to 6 inch rain totals, some isolated totals getting upwards of 6 to 8 inches, and that's where we'll probably see some of the flooding come in. It's impossible to pinpoint exactly where the heaviest rain band will continue, but just be ready if you're in this area I have circled primarily coming out of Sunday all the way through early Tuesday. That's where the worst flooding concern is going to go from, of course, the southern end of that area to the northern end with time. There's that Sunday severe weather threat on my ONW severe scale again. Scattered severe weather expected in the Houston, Texas area today and into tonight as those outer bands push onshore. Going into our Monday, we'll continue to see some of those bands on the eastern side of this low as it'll make its way through Texas, heading into Oklahoma and Arkansas. If you're really there from southeast Texas into Louisiana and Arkansas, that's where I want you to pay the most attention, as severe weather in connection to the remnants of Beryl will be likely on Monday. Very notable wind shear will pair with daytime heating out ahead of some of those bands before they move in. In that yellow 3 of 7 area, at least I think that's where the best chance for all of that to converge will be. That will create the highest chance for severe weather even into the evening. Arguably, I could have even put a 4 of 7 down for some of those spin-up tornadoes there. Maybe I could have put a 3 down as we go towards Tuesday, but for now we've got a broad 2 of 7 on that eastern side of this low from Arkansas and Missouri up to far southwestern Ohio. Isolated severe weather in association with Tropical Cyclone Beryl, and what's left of it could impact parts of the Midwest and Ohio Valley. Again, this is Tuesday. There will be a band of heavy rain pushing through the central parts of Illinois and Missouri throughout Tuesday heading into Wednesday. On the eastern side of that, that's where that severe weather could continue. We'll see if that could even propagate into other areas heading into Wednesday. Let's time everything out here. Let's go back to the coast right there with Houston down to Victoria. There's that heavy rainfall on our Monday morning as this cyclone, as it's technically called, tropical cyclone, hurricane, whatever, pushes onshore. By the time we go towards our Tuesday morning, I've already talked about this, but why not break it down one more time anyway? Northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma, southwestern Arkansas. These are going to be the locations feeling the heaviest impacts. That is July 9th into the very wee morning hours. Down here, this is where we'll have the best tornado potential going through that time. Not really much into Mississippi, but definitely Louisiana and Arkansas. Again, because you're kind of below and on the east side of that low pressure system. Here's that low continuing into our Tuesday afternoon, probably stationed somewhere coming out of Arkansas at this time frame with heavy rainfall there through the northern part of the state. Don't treat any model that I've shown in this video as perfect, but definitely expect the heaviest rain Tuesday afternoon coming out of far eastern Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, as well as into southeastern Missouri. This area in here, this is where I highlighted that 2 of 7 on my scale for now. I could elevate it for the severe weather possibility. Definitely some isolated tornadoes, definitely possible coming out of Memphis to Jackson to Nashville and Tennessee up to Murray, Bowling Green, Paducah, and Kentucky, as well as into southern Illinois and Indiana. Notice by the time we go towards our Wednesday morning, the low might be actually lagging behind this, but the heaviest rain is going to be probably moving through St. Louis, Missouri, Springfield. A lot of these areas in Illinois and Indiana actually need rain, so we'll see how much flooding could actually come out of this, especially if it stays more towards those green shades and a little bit more moderate. Heading into the rest of our Wednesday morning, this thing will be fairly quickly moving, all things considered. So Detroit, Cleveland, down to Columbus, all these locations in major cities from southern Michigan down into Ohio, we'll start to see the rain and gusty winds move in at this time. 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts will push inland. It's not going to be a huge deal, though. Anything that would be significant would just be those southeastern side tornado potential days there, Monday into Tuesday, and then maybe Wednesday. Notice the low pressure moving in towards Michigan and Ohio as we go towards Thursday and into Friday. This is going to keep things active there into the northeastern quadrant of the United States. Let's look at the 48-hour precipitation from Arkansas northward now. This goes from Monday evening through Wednesday evening. A lot of this is going to fall at the specific times I just showed you in the timing, but really into Tuesday for a lot of, especially northern Arkansas, heading into Missouri and Illinois. The low will be moving off by the end of Wednesday in the direction I just pointed at, but the heaviest total will be behind it for the rainfall, at least at this time. Notice from northern Arkansas to Missouri to Illinois, into far northwestern Indiana and the Gary area, Chicago, Illinois. These locations, this is where we're going to have 3 to 6 inches of rain in some scattered spots, definitely more numerous 2-inch totals spread about though. Anticipate some isolated flood. If the totals stay this tame though, and there's not too many locally higher amounts, we won't see much more than isolated flooding once we get past Arkansas. I think Arkansas, we're definitely going to see some more numerous flooding, but into Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, we could use some rain in some of these spots, especially into central Illinois and central Indiana. We'll see if we get too much up there, but definitely be ready for some heavy rain and some possibly flooded roadways in the middle of the week. Then as we go towards the back half of the week from Wednesday morning through early Friday morning, this is where that rain will be clearing out of Chicago through a lot of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio over to the northeastern United States as well. The back half of the week is when this moves through. A lot of it will be done by Friday there in the Great Lakes, but nonetheless, some might still be wrapping around 2 to 4 inches here from Pennsylvania, New York, over to Maine out ahead of it. That is it for this video. Again, down below in the comments section, it really helps me gauge where viewers are watching from and who I need to cater my content towards more in the future. Let me know where you are watching from down in the comments. Hit the subscribe button. If you're subscribed, you'll get those updates that I post in the community tab, updating my severe scale, etc. I'll see you in the next video midweek.
One nation weather.